the last question that I feel like I'm required to ask
Yeah.
before we throw it to the audience when talking about these kinds of things, you're in an interesting position as being an author, obviously, and a writer. That's what you do by profession. You're obviously clearly a technologist who's familiar with these technologies, who's training this tech on other writers' works.
Yes.
What do you make of the debate and the conflict that's happening right now between creatives who feel like their work is being, the copyrights are being infringed upon by these models,
Right.
and their ownership over their own work, and then the AI models learning from it?
Well, I mean, it is a very specific. I actually think it's a misunderstanding of artificial intelligence. Like, it does consume work, but it consumes it the way, like, it would be like me eating a book.
Yeah.
Like, am I stealing a book when I eat it and when it comes out?
Or you read other books and then are inspired by them and generate
yes.
something.
It's interesting because there's nowhere near the stigma about, like, a writer in Japan just won the Akugatawa Prize, which is like the Pulitzer Prize of Japan, for a book that's 5% AI generated. Nobody cares. Right. And Chinese science fiction writers have been using artificial intelligence to flesh out parts of their books for years. Nobody cares. Right. So it's actually the hatred of AI is a very specific cultural phenomenon related to a very specifically Western idea of originality and authenticity that I understand and I think is noble, but that is very localized.
Well, I think IP protection is something that has actually done a lot for America.
Listen, no one is allowed
protection.
to take my work without paying me.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying like and that goes for that goes for these models too. Like, they need to pay for it. But I also don't think people really understand that for these artificial intelligence models, like, what they're really drawn on is things like emails. Right? Like, W.B. Yeats' Sailing to Byzantium for a large language model is no different than your last email. Well, it's just meaning.
With the caveat, perhaps, and tell me if you disagree, that if I say, hey, write me a book like Stephen Marsh.
Yeah.
That's no
Although
longer
in
just
my
write me
case, that would
something.
be really weird because I don't know what the hell it would come up with.
It might be interesting. You might learn something about your own brand. You're like, oh, that's
what
who
I don't
am
have.
as a
I mean,
writer?
no. I as you say, I write weird things that have no connection with each other, which is why I have no brand. but yes, I guess that's true in a way. But on the other hand, like, when I wrote The Next Civil War, like, I literally read Cormac McCarthy every morning before I started writing it. I was like, I'm going to write a book as if I were Cormac McCarthy.
And I think that's
and
more
then the New York Times
maybe...
said it's like a book Cormac McCarthy would write. I was like, done. Right? Like,
job complete.
Job complete,
Which is why I think that's probably more accurate than eating the book, because obviously.
Yeah. Well, I think there were people who showed me things like they typed in what are the chances of there being a civil war in the United States, and the opening page of my book, what came out of ChatGPT, right?
The verbatim.
Yeah, verbatim. And I was like, that's not right.
Yeah.
that's I need to get paid for that.
Yeah.
Right. And there are other similar problems to that.
Yeah.
Like, I certainly think writers need to get paid when their work is used.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
Right. But like, on the other hand, I think people who worry about that are kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
I think the larger things are at stake. They're going to fix that one.
Right.
Right. Like, that's a fixable problem.
We may all be useless, or we're killed in search of making a million paper clips, or whatever that analogy is.
Yeah.
Like, those are the bigger existential issues.
Or what does it mean that a machine can make meaning?
Yeah.
Right. What does
I
that
don't even
like?
understand
What does that
question.
mean?
Yeah.
Right. Like I think the questions that AI poses are actually the most profound spiritual questions.
Yeah.
What is the relationship between language and identity? What is the relationship between meaning and, like, what parts of our meaning are actually meaningful? Why can you spot AI work? Because you can. But they're so. I think people who worry about, like, jobs and stuff like that, it's like, that's really not the problem. There are there will be jobs that will be created and some will be destroyed. Like,
I think it is a problem, but it's
but it's the same problem as all the other
other technological advancement.
And capitalism.
Sure.
Right. Those are. It's not specific to AI, but the questions that AI asks are really the deepest questions. Right. And I think that's why I think why it's so fascinating. Right. Like, I just find it endlessly fascinating.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do hit like and subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified every time a new episode drops. Thank you.